will ask Reverend Ian Ritchie to say our opening prayer.
The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Gracious God, our Heavenly Father, we give thanks and praise to you this evening, giving thanks for your gracious love and care for us. We give thanks for the high privilege you have given to us of being stewards of your creation, gardeners in God's garden. We pray that this evening you will help us to learn as we hear about working faithfully with those who are entrusted with government. For we pray these things in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Ian. I will do our land acknowledgement. So we are acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Huron-Wendat, as well as other people. Nations who have sought to walk gently on this land. We seek a relationship with the original peoples of this land, one rooted and based on honor and deep respect. And my personal part of the land acknowledgement is that I'm a temporary custodian of a piece of land, and I found on our land some black ash trees, which I understand is referred to as basket ash, and our Indigenous First Peoples use it to make baskets. So that's my sort of personal connection to this land. So this season and the others, this session and the others in the series have been organized by the Green Group, the Anglican Green Group, and the Diocesan Green Group's purpose is the promotion of the 5th mark of mission. So I'm honored to introduce this evening's speaker, Sophie Kiwala. I just have to jump over to her bio. One moment, please. So Sophie was the former member of Parliament for Kingston and the Islands, where she concurrently served as the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation, Children and Youth, as well as the Minister of Tourism, Culture and Sport. During her time as a member of Parliament, she served on numerous committees, including the Provincial Budget Committee, and Amendments Committee, the Legislative Assembly, and Provincial Appointments. And she was also the government representative for a security review. I keep jumping back, sorry. Security review of the Legislative Assembly, as well as the committee to bring Indigenous art and carving into the chamber. While Sophie was in office, she brought over $1 billion worth of investments to Kingston area, including funding for the renovation of KGH and for the provincial portion of the 3rd crossing, and 2 new electric ferries for Wolfe Island and Amherst Island, and the funding for the combined Catholic and public French high school. She served on the Assembly Francophonie Women's Caucus and the Lung Health Caucus, and she founded a
Mary's frozen.
I think Mary's connection is slow. I'm frozen. She was having trouble. She was having trouble earlier. Perhaps, Sophie, we could ask you simply to start your presentation.
Absolutely, no problem. Will you be sharing the host position with me so that I can do a screen share?
Yes, I believe that's set. I think you should be able to.
Okay.
share your screen now.
Okay, perfect. I will. Try and get that up screen here. Oh, starting at the, hang on. Slide. There we go. Okay. So thank you everyone for inviting me to take part in this webinar or Zoom session. I'm really excited. Okay, now I'm seeing a sign that my internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, very good. All right. There's no mistake that I chose an image of Lemoyne Point Conservation Area for our first slide this evening, a true thin space, a place where we feel that the line between heaven and earth is indeed thin. I expect that many, if not all of you, have experienced that at least at one point in your lives. For me, Lemoyne Point is a place of joy, solace, of worship, and it also happens to be where Michael proposed to me. So a small personal note there. You will notice in this image the option of 2 paths. I ask that you just remember this for later in the presentation. I would like you to take a moment to consider this peaceful image. Think about the subject at hand, the climate crisis. I'm going to ask that you take a moment of silence and prayer, bringing your good and faithful hearts forward as we deliberate on how we can best work faithfully with government while paying tribute to those lives lost too soon to this climate crisis. And I ask just for a moment of silence, please. Thank you. I'm going to open with a little bit of scripture, and I want to draw from the great story of the burning bush and God's commission to Moses when God calls out to him. From Exodus chapter 3, verses 9 to 11. And now the cry of the Israelites, hang on one second here. Of course I can't see, there you are. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? Who are we indeed to go to Pharaoh? We know that Moses is assured that God will be with him. We also know that Moses was afraid to look at God. In the context of the climate crisis, it is so hard to know what to do, where to start, how to proceed, and make our efforts count. How will we make our elected representatives not only listen and learn, but take the necessary action? I read again, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? My answer to this question to each of you, you are exactly who, when, and how God needs you to be in this place and time. I hope that by the time we finish our discussion this evening, you will feel inspired with a few extra tools in your advocacy toolbox. I'm going to read from Esther chapter 14, which is in fact part of the Old Testament reading for this Sunday. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. And who knows about that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. It couldn't be more poignant to tonight's discussion. This is one of the harrowing views that we had this past summer of Lytton, BC, and it's something that has haunted many who have been concerned about climate change. There's no small irony in my bringing back to you that story of the burning bush. We have all seen the havoc and devastation that global warming has wreaked upon the world, and especially the people of Lytton, BC, just this past summer. With record-breaking temperatures of 49 degrees for several days, Lytton residents had only 10 to 15 minutes in some cases to flee, carrying with them only what they could carry in their own arms. Hurricane Ida. One has only to glance at the devastation of this man's home and his body language, exemplifying his sheer despair as he sees his life and stability lying crumbled before his eyes. Okay, so I've just skipped a slide. Oh, jeepers. I think it's going to be okay. We're going to skip that slide. Anyway, so to get to the meat of tonight's discussion, we need to view the discussion from an elected representative's position. And I think that that will provide us with some context. So who are you to an elected representative? You're a voter, a constituent, you're a special interest group, a stakeholder, a supporter, or an opponent, a pain in the backside, and that's the truth. But most of all, you are consistent, persistent, and unwavering. So that brings us to the important part of tonight's discussion. And what are the tools that we are going to use to advocate to government? Most specifically, whoops, oh, are you kidding me? Okay, sorry about this, technical difficulties. I'm going to have to whip right through this again. I don't know why it did that. All right, here we are. Don't you love technology? Okay. There we go. All right. So one of the obvious things that we can do to advocate to government is, of course, the standard email and letter campaigns. We can also ask for meetings with elected representatives. We can engage in walks and marches. We can host town halls. We can extend an outreach. We can do consultations. We can do federal and provincial petitions. And we can have advocacy days at provincial legislative assemblies and the House of Commons. But there's another one that I've left off of this list, which is quite important. And that is, you can ask elected representatives if they will engage with you as a green group and allow you to become part of an advisory group to that elected representative. This is something that I did when I was in office, I had a seniors advisory group that I met with 3 times a year. I had a youth advisory group that I met with the same consistency. And I also had an accessibility and disability advisory group, and we would discuss all of the issues that were relevant to that group at the time. And these advisory groups give you an opportunity to have an ongoing discussion. So as things change in their world, they will inform the representative. If you can manage to get a climate crisis advisory group for your elected representatives, it's the best case scenario in terms of advocacy, because you can talk about legislation as it comes up, you can ask questions, you've got a sort of half open door most of the time, and that elected representative knows that you know that he or she is listening. So you've got a really solid footing there to have some good advocacy, and I think it's really critical. Anyway, So those are the primary things that I wanted to bring to your attention. I want to know what you're interested in doing with respect to advocacy. Where do you think your interest lies? Do you see yourself having those in-person meetings? Do you see yourselves extending outreach to other groups and bringing them on board and engaging with others? Tell me a little bit about where you're at and what you see yourself doing. And I'm just going to end the slideshow so you don't have to see it again and again. Anyway, I'm throwing it out to you. What questions come to mind? Not everybody at once. Don,
So
I know.
Sometimes I have a quick question here.
Yeah.
So I tried last year to, I sent a message to our federal MP for Kingston Islands, and eventually got a response back from somebody in the staff. And then I asked for a meeting because the response was just not really dealing with the issue at all, and they just ignored me. So what do you kind of do when the member doesn't actually want to meet with you? I don't have a history of being a pain in the butt either, particularly not maybe to my bishop, but not to my member of parliament.
So that's an easy one. In the discussion where I talked about being consistent and persistent, you take that message and you send it back again, and you say, I apologize. I don't feel like my question was answered. My issue has not been addressed. I would like to meet with my member of parliament. And you don't, by the time that you've come to that point, you've probably already waited some time for an answer. Sorry, but it's not acceptable. So I wouldn't wait any more than another week for an answer to the next question. And if you don't get an answer on that one, you keep flipping it back, and you might consider if you want to take a hard line, but I don't suggest that you do this, because you want to create a continuously open door. And when I talked about when I gave the title Working Faithfully with Government, what I mean when I say that, or part of what I mean when I say that, is that you have to create yourself as a working partner with that person. That's the sort of basis of your relationship that you want to establish, so that you can go to that person again. But at the same time, you're not going to take being ignored, and they need to know that you're not going to take being ignored. You are a constituent. you know, our taxes pay for their salary, for the salaries of their staff, and not answering is 100% not acceptable. So taking a firm but friendly line is the best approach. That's why the advocacy group is a really good idea. And when you have that kind of an constant engagement with an elected representative, that person knows, like, say, for example, this group, this screen, you can pull me out because I'm not going to sit in on a meeting like that. I mean, I'd help you with it, but Mark might say no if he knows I'm there. Anyway, but if, for example, you had a group like this and had others in the green group who were able to be present, and you reached out, you did some outreach beforehand, and you know, got a date from him, you would say to him, okay, we've got 4, 8, 12, 16, whatever, people who would like to meet with you on Zoom. This is an engaged citizenry, and we're really looking forward to having a discussion with you, blah, blah, blah. So then that representative knows for the, you know, 20 minutes or half an hour, whatever he or she is going to give you, is not going to be talking with just one person. He's got the opportunity. You remember the first person on the list that I cited? Voters. He's got the opportunity to talk to 16 voters with that few minutes. So smart politicians are good with their time, and they're going to want to maximize the time. And if they know they've got, you know, a solid, good group who's on the same page as they are, or who might be on the same page as they are with respect to the environment and climate change, that's a win-win. And you can use me as a resource at any time, like any time. You know, if you want to run by a letter by me, a petition, anything like that, you can 100% use me as a resource.
Sophie, we're in the green group. We want to go as a group. We represent at least 4 different ridings. So would we choose one that's government or opposition, or the best, most approachable person, or how do we do that?
All of them. You have to be able to play all those cards. You have to speak with everybody. You never know when government can change. You on an issue that is nonpartisan, like the climate crisis, you need to be able to speak to everybody. And it's fair game to let your representative know that you are speaking with everybody. You know, you if you wanted to send out an invitation letter, you can certainly say we are a group that belongs to a number of electoral districts, and we are reaching out to all of our representatives, and then you can put them all in the the addressee section of your email at the same time, and that'll get them going. Because they won't want to be ignoring you, because you can be sure that the opposition is going to be responding.
That's this is very helpful. I've been I've been wondering how it is, though, that when we read, there are 2 pieces of news that I read in the last week or so that have exercised my mind wonderfully. One is that a study was done in the UK on the actual life cycle emissions of the new, it's called blue hydrogen. Hydrogen that's formed not according to ecologically sustainable practices, but is kind of prettified a little bit more than the older brown hydrogen that was formed from the steam reformation of methane. Basically, many people now feel that the whole hydrogen hype is basically a boondoggle for the fossil fuel industry to make it look like they are greening things, when in fact, this UK study showed that the life cycle emissions needed to produce blue hydrogen is actually worse than coal.
Mm-hmm.
If you can imagine, worse than coal. And we have phased out coal in Ontario because of the emissions.
Yeah.
So, but now the other piece of news I read in the last week is that federal politicians have been lobbied on the average 3 times per week by fossil fuel lobbyists over the past year, just in the past year. So how do we get the same amount of access to federal members of parliament that the fossil fuel lobbyists got?
You organize and be persistent and consistent. Be unwavering in how you approach this. You remember the point that I brought up about outreach. Make sure that you extend outreach to other interested parties and ask that they join you. This is a nonpartisan issue. And make sure that you reach out to other electoral districts so that you can have access to all of the representatives in Ontario or in Canada. It doesn't, it shouldn't be a small thing. If I was the Green group, I would be reaching out to all of the Green groups that exist across the country and developing a plan, a framework on how you can go forward. What should your priorities be? And my suggestion would be that you look at that list and you start checking off what you want to do. What are your priorities? Have a timeline. Maybe you want to have start your timeline maybe in January, or start your timeline sometime later this fall. Have a letter campaign. Why not try and make it a goal that you get your first meeting with elected representatives, and don't go alone. Go with several people before Christmas. The representatives have a long Christmas break. They have time after Christmas is over and the New Year. They probably won't go back to the House of Commons until February and sometimes even March. So there's no excuse to not be seeing constituents on important issues like this. You could make it a longer term goal to have an advocacy day at Queen's Park and the House of Commons by the spring, or maybe next fall. That's going to take some planning. But if you succeeded in doing that, having an advocacy day there, what you do with an advocacy day in a legislative assembly or at the House of Commons is you have a day where you go, you rent a room. I don't think that you pay for the rented room. And then you might have, say, if you did a breakfast meeting, you would invite MPs of all parties to come to a breakfast meeting. This was, of course, in pre-COVID times. I'm not sure how things will have changed and how they might change again by next fall. But you would have a breakfast meeting, a lunch meeting, or an after the legislature or House of Commons closes for the day. And then you'd have to foot the bill for some alcohol, because most politicians drink. and some snacks and things like that. And you'd also, if you, I always liked the lunchtime ones, because you could get away with little sandwiches and maybe not quite as much alcohol. Cheaper. Anyway, so, but that's how it works. That's what they do. So you would have, a couple of speeches, but then what you would do is you would make appointments in the afternoon to meet with one-on-one, or you'd have a group of 3 or 4 of you meeting with an MP at the House of Commons or an MPP at the Ontario Legislature. And you would have those one-on-one discussions, and you might have, again, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, probably 10 if you're going there. So you have to make your presentation sharp. It has to be focused and sharp. You probably don't want to have any more than 3 points that you want to discuss. And you do your presentation, but you keep at it. So here's an example of an advocacy initiative that I want to tell you about, that I was party to in the Ontario Legislature. The Firemen's Association would come to lobby us on getting some changed legislation so that they could create a bill where PTSD was presumed rather than needing to be proven. They lobbied the government for probably 6-7 years before the legislation was finally changed. I took part in 2 annual lobby days for that piece of legislation. And then finally, the government created the legislation. They were our central partners to that legislation. And, we consulted with them on the wording, and it was a very positive campaign. And we ended up at the end of the day with exactly what was needed to protect emergency responders. Paramedics were part of that legislation as well. Not that one can afford to take 6 or 7 years for the climate crisis. We need concerted and concentrated action now. So there's no time to spare. This needs to happen.
I think we've had some success with our, like at the provincial level of our church, right? Working with other faith groups at that level, right? On Cemetery Act, on licensing of, people to do counseling. There's been different areas where we've actually had, goods. We already have kind of some infrastructure in place and people that know how to access government. I would think that would probably be the place that we would go for this sort of thing. And I'm not involved with provincial synod anymore, but I was a few years ago.
Yeah, no, you're right. Those are all key areas where there has been positive engagement. But just going back to how you get an elected representative to respond, now that we have a new government, and we're in a new session, there's nothing wrong with sending that email back and or starting over again, but including all of the MPs that surround us and sending them the same email and saying, we are the Anglican Green Group. We're interested in coming in to meet our elected representatives. We have members in all of your ridings, and we look forward to hearing back from you. We're hoping to have these meetings set by X date. You have to leave a concrete time frame, because if you just leave it vague, or you leave it up to them to do the next thing and do it properly, it might not happen, and then you've wasted time. So you want to clearly carve out what it is that you're expecting, by when, and then you're going to want to, end your email with a friendly, I'll be back in touch with you by X day to see when we might be able to set up this meeting. And it's not going to be if, it's going to be when. And just, that sort of pleasant, consistent, hard line. You want this. You are entitled to have that engagement with your elected representative. What do you think?
Hello, it's Mary. I'm actually back on. Can you hear me and see me now?
Yes.
Wonderful. My computer actually died.
Oh, no.
So that's okay. I'm using an alternative. My apologies for that. And I'm not sure, Sophie, is your presentation finished and we're just going to have a discussion? Is that?
It's finished. We're in the question and answer stage now.
Perfect. Okay, wonderful. So are there any of the participants that we have online here that have questions for Sophie? I know I've learned a lot already.
When did you come back into the call? At what point?
I've been in and out, actually.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But I suspect I just didn't see your slides, and then I've been a part of the conversation about advocacy and meeting up with your MPs and being persuasive. So that was very good information that you provided.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So Dawn and I have had a little bit of back and forth conversation, and one of the things that Dawn, I know you were asking about, and this is a really good question, is social media.
Right. I don't know how many of us in Green Group, other than me, are really doing well on social media.
Okay.
I tinker around, but I have not many clues of how best to use it.
Yeah. So I love the question, because I did a piece of, well, this is another thing that you can do. It's another tool that I didn't mention. You can help create legislation. You can draft your own legislation suggestions to elected representatives. They don't have to take it, but when a good chunk of the work is already done, it's not a bad way to start. Everybody is short of time. Elected representatives are extremely busy. I would work 12, 16 hours a day, no problem. And, they're just really short of time. So to have an engaged group that is willing to take that kind of initiative and do that kind of background work is a huge plus. So one piece of legislation that I had put forward was on getting extra resources for children with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And you're so busy, you're pushing the envelope all the time. You put out the legislation, you do the outreach that you can to engage other groups in it, to get them to support it as well, and push the information out there on social media. But one group in particular took the piece of legislation, certain points in the piece of legislation, and they built a beautiful advocacy campaign around it. And this is something that you can do. Again, the shortage of time that elected representatives experience makes this a really positive thing, because you're you create some good energy out there, and you give them the tools that they can use to put out themselves. So any leg up that you can help them with is a plus. So, offering to help them with their social media campaign on this subject is a great initiative.
Wonderful. I have a question. I'm just thinking about being an elected representative, and is it the number of people that pile on? Does that have an impact on what your priorities become? Or is it, is it just, if there's something that you're particularly interested in, or is it really and truly about your constituents and what you're hearing from them and you're moving that forward?
It's probably a bit of both, and it depends on the person. A sensitive, compassionate, collaborative, and smart representative will want to engage on important subjects to their constituents. So people will bring all kinds of subjects to a representative, and some of them you can focus on, some of them you can't. But consistent and effective and collaborative outreach to a representative is the best thing that you can do, because when there are discussions in a caucus room, for example, on a subject, so say, for example, the Green Group and Ian go to see a number, all of the neighboring representatives and the ones for here as well. And you talk about blue hydrogen. Well, most of them are not going to have a clue about blue hydrogen. Mm-hmm. So there might be some little tidbit that Ian gives them about blue hydrogen. They go back to the House of Commons or the Legislative Assembly. They're sitting in caucus. They're having a conversation about the climate crisis or climate change or climate legislation, green legislation, whatever. And somebody mentions blue hydrogen. Right away, you've got a representative who has the opportunity to sit in that room, whether they are a minister, a secretary, or a parliamentary assistant. They are sitting in a caucus room and they've heard that term before. And then that person can say, this has been brought to me in my constituency, if they're a member that will speak up. So that's why it's important. And that's why with the advocacy groups that I was talking about, as new issues come forward, that member has a continued opportunity to be informed on a grassroots level. And there is nothing better than that. There's no reason why they would not want that.
There are three things there, I think, that are important. One is the framing of a problem, which is important. So people come in and they say, here's the problem I see. So it's great, frame the problem. The second thing, just as what we were just talking about now, is being able to provide an opportunity to learn or to get information around something that the representative may not be aware of. The third, which I think is golden, is providing a proposed solution. So, for example, Sophie, when we went back down to the legislature, and Kathleen Wynne reintroduced your bill on getting supports in the classrooms for children dealing and their caregivers dealing with FASD. That was, and then having an advocacy day tied with that, there were two things that were happening there. all three of them actually. It was an opportunity to frame the problem in providing supports for those children in the classrooms, an opportunity to learn more because there was the organization was there, and that was powerful. One of the speakers was somebody who lives with FASD. And that was powerful. And that person was able to speak to a room full of legislators and people who have a stake in the game around this stuff. And then the third piece was the solution, which was going into the legislature. And when those, and there were quite a few representatives, MPPs, that came to that advocacy day. Now they know about it. And that was able to move past first and second reading of that private member's bill. So if you can bring all of those three things together, and I think what's gold is being able to provide a solution too. And
Yeah.
I never experienced those advocacy days before, but I think there's a lot to be said for that, and being able to link all those three things together.
It's immeasurably powerful. It's an available tool, and it's free. If you don't do the reserve the breakfast room or the lunchroom or whatever and provide alcohol, it's free. You have a right to have those conversations. There's no reason why they should not be happening. When I was there, I left in 2018. When I was there, we didn't have people coming forward with this. Why not? You know what I mean? Why not? It needs to happen. Could be another full-time job for everybody on this screen.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Oh, well, you can take the nice thing about doing this in a group is that you can take a part of it. You know, you can have a piece of this work. It doesn't actually need to be full-time, but you know, it really is an important thing to do. And now is the time. Now is the time.
So Sophie, in terms of COVID, how much of this can we do virtually?
Oh, you could probably do all of it virtually. Yeah. Okay. But it's going to be different. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm still I'm terribly concerned about the climate, but I'm still concerned about COVID.
Yeah.
And I think that we all need to be cautious.
Yeah. I agree.
As do our elected representatives. And it's also a question of time. You know, COVID's a great time saver because it cuts out travel. And it's great to bring people together.
There's no reason at all why these conversations couldn't happen just exactly like this one is. You know, so one of the things that I listed in the toolkit list was town halls. You can have a town hall that's online. You could have some, you know, it would be nothing to have a speaker or two or three. You could have, you know, an afternoon roundtable discussion and bring together experts to talk about this and invite elected representatives to be part of that. You know, there's no reason why that couldn't be done. Free, easy, you know, gets the word out there.
I have a question as well. Is there, I'm not sure how to frame this, but are elected officials and like the government of the day, are they reluctant to sort of take on particular religious groups and support their ideas? Like, is it because there's one group versus another, or is there a perception of, is that even on the radar?
I don't think you would have an issue with that right now. And if there is an issue like that, boy, there's an uphill battle with that representative. And that's very unfortunate. And that's why the outreach piece is important, because you can come together with other groups. You know, we have in the diocese, we've got the Justice and Peace Commission. You know, there's no reason, they're already working with the Catholic group. They're also working with the Sisters of Providence. So, you know, bring people, this could be an interfaith opportunity. How powerful would that be? You know, you could go to the mosque here in Kingston. I could fire you all kinds of names of people who would be over the moon to support such an initiative if it did become an interfaith group. I mean, that would have so much power, and an initiative like that would get media attention. I can help you with that as well. The possibilities are endless, truly.
At one point, we did have an interfaith group working on climate issues.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think COVID kiboshed a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But those people are still concerned, and those people are still there. It's a matter of getting back together.
Okay, well, that's a very good thing. And if you already have that basic framework there to tap into again and enliven, we should do that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question.
Any more questions for Sophie? Oh, Dawn, sorry, go ahead.
I had a question about it being a minority government. Is there anything we would do differently?
Oh,
Who we approach?
I think you're better off in a minority government, quite frankly. I think that the government has all cylinders firing to listen to everybody, whether they want to or not. Well, I should say all parties are listening, or they should be listening, whether they want to or not. And I do think that this is a really good time to take action, to organize and take action. One of the most powerful groups, lobby groups in Queen's Park when I was there, was the autism group. You know, kids with autism are all across the province. They are motivated because their daily lives are affected by the challenges of having children with autism. And they're a fierce group, but you need to organize, and you need to develop a plan and collaborate with others and get this moving. No pressure or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So Sophie, we're all either English speaking or bilingual Ontarians. Can we write letters to bloc representatives? Should we include the bloc?
Climate change still affects people all across Canada, so there's nothing to lose, right? And they certainly wouldn't mind any extra wedge issues to have in their arsenal. It's an adversarial sport, politics, unfortunately, and you have to be able to play the game. This is an important game to play.
Mm-hmm.
And we, the time is now. I don't know. I could repeat that over and over again. It still wouldn't be enough, but count on me to help as much as you need me. And, it's a short period of time for a call. Ian, are we supposed to finish at 8 or are we? I'm not
we
sure.
can go a little bit over. There's no problem that way.
Okay.
I was wondering if now at this juncture, following this election, if we are at a unique moment, perhaps, Aaron O'Toole, as leader of the Conservative Party, has tried to drag his party in the direction of recognizing climate change. So far, he has not succeeded in bringing a majority of Conservative MPs or members of his party with him. But it occurs to me that he might well, because he does take climate change seriously, might well be open to seeing opportunities to expose misspent money, of which blue hydrogen will be the chiefest of them if the current fossil fuel lobbyists succeed in getting their program through Parliament. They want not just millions, but billions of dollars of government money, which is the taxpayers' money, to fund something that looks like or will be made to appear to be better for the environment, but will in fact be worse than coal. Now, it seems to me, perhaps at this early stage, that any party that considers itself to be guardians of the public purse in terms of government overspending, and Conservatives like to think of themselves as champions of wise fiscal restraint. The only problem is that Alberta is firmly in the hands of the fossil fuel lobby. And that is where a lot of Conservative votes came from. I think Aaron O'Toole is in a real dilemma, but perhaps if a branch reached out to him that could show itself to be fiscally wise in terms of financial restraint, let's not go overboard thinking that just a whole lot of greenwashing will make things better, because it's going to be extremely expensive.
It is a good juncture politically. And I think that approaching this as, framing your attempts at collaboration with all parties needs to be collaborative, inviting, positive. And, I do believe that it is the best time to, politically, at least from the right side of the spectrum, to address this. And it probably needs to happen very quickly. If green groups could be mobilized across the country and could write supportive letters for their MPs, for their Conservative MPs, that would be another way to handle this. So I do think that you have a very unique opportunity and a unique time frame to take advantage of right now.
Yeah.
I think Michael wanted to say something.
It's important too, I think, to do an analysis of the audience to which you're speaking. So I'd be thinking, if you're looking at, and again, I think the minority situation is an opportunity, and the reality of the situation, if the Conservative Party wants to sit at 119 seats forever because they can't get into Metro Toronto, they can't get into London, they can't get into Kingston, they can't get into Montreal, they can't get into any metro area, because the message is not resonating. And I think Aaron O'Toole was trying to bring that message but they're not having enough time to be able to bring enough of his own people on side so that you had more of a full court press on those kinds of things. But there are people for whom this issue is important. Michael Chong, for example, was an individual who spoke in the Conservative Leadership Convention about the need for pricing on carbon. Now, at the time, I think he was booed off of every stage he was on. But now that this is now Aaron O'Toole is speaking that language. There are people that when they're able to step up and say, I've got some allies here who can be with us and can help us find some balance in our conversation, because you've got two ways to go. You can either say you want to be a gadfly forever and have two seats and be over in the far corner screaming and yelling and jumping up and down and getting nothing done, or you can actually take a run at government. And by doing that and having a good relationship, or working to build a good relationship across the board, and trying to seek common ground by finding the high ground to stand on and say, here are the things we agree on. We may disagree on all this other stuff, but here's something we agree on, and we can work on this together. And we're here to do those three things: frame the problem, provide resources, and we're here with a solution. Then that's going to, so rather than, to pillory an Aaron O'Toole and what he was trying to do, see that as a crack of light, find a way to exploit it. And I think that's important, because if he gets thrown off to the side and everything swings back to where it is, then what's been achieved? And I think that's an important part to play. When we do, you were mentioning the provincial synod earlier, and that's an important body, because one of the things that the benefits that we have from the Anglican side of things is that our ecclesiastical province covers all of Ontario and a chunk of Quebec. But we're able to have conversations with the provincial government in ways that other groups can't. And we have a government relations secretariat that a number of issues, and maybe some of you remember the Walkerton crisis and the decisions the government was taking around how they were going to respond to that, which would have basically bankrupted rural congregations, because they couldn't afford the expensive water purification systems that were being proposed in order to keep people safe as everyone reacted to Walkerton. So the provincial synod was one of the key bodies that came alongside the government at that time to say, look, here's what we can do. Here's some reasonable solutions that will achieve the goals you want and provide a solution. And that was a huge piece. So we have some things within the Anglican Church already that I think would be really good to bring to bear as an ally in this, and to try to find a way to reach out. Because our government relations secretariat has a former Liberal cabinet minister, a former Conservative MP, and an NDP staffer, and they bring in people from their own parties to hear what we have to say, and we set priorities at provincial synod. And so I think climate is one of the priorities that we've set. We look at seniors issues and housing. So these are opportunities to partner and to then be stronger together than we are apart.
Beautiful sermon, honey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sophie, I believe PWRDF is working hard on climate issues too.
Yes, yeah, we are. And I could go on for another full webinar on that. There are many good initiatives in that program. What I want to do at this juncture is I've just taken some notes here about some of the things that we've discussed. And we don't have everybody with a camera open, including Ruth, Barb and Peter, Valerie, and Faye and Will. So I can't really do an on-screen visual of who's interested in doing what. But I just want to review some of the things that we've talked about and see if there's any interest in. I always hate leaving meetings without having a go-to next step. So I just want to, if I could read quickly through some of the things that I think are things that we can do. Maybe we can go around the screen and I can ask you to pick I don't know, one or two of those things that are top on your priority. And out of that exercise, we might find ourselves with a project on our hands. How does that sound?
Wonderful.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
All right. So we've got email and letter campaign, meetings. I did list walks and marches, but I think they're a waste of time, so I'm scratching that. Town
Oh.
halls.
Well, there's one on tomorrow.
Okay, we'll go, but it's not the most effective thing. Anyway,
Okay.
in terms of things that we can do together as a group, outreach, consultations, they're very good, but they're expensive. Actually, with Zoom, they don't have to be expensive. Advocacy days, petitions, an advocacy group with the member, reconvening the interfaith group, and setting provincial priorities for synod. So I'm going to go around the screen and I'm going to put a check or your name beside what you have said is a priority, so we can try and get a sense of who's interested in doing what, or what this screen's response is to what we've been talking about tonight. Does that sound all right? Oh, everybody's going to get off
Sure.
the call now.
Exactly. Suddenly it's you and Michael.
Yeah, that's right. Mike, we're going to have a conversation tonight. Okay, Ian, you're first on my screen. What's your top priority?
Oh, well, I do have this desire to speak to some MPs
Okay.
about these issues, the clean transition.
Okay, so meetings then.
Yeah,
Okay. And that's your top one.
I would think so. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Mary and Dawn, and you can each have a vote if you want it to be different.
It can be different.
Yeah.
I go for advocacy days and groups. A group is the best thing for us.
Okay, an advocacy group. Excellent. Okay. And Mary.
I would go along with that, but I'll also check out that interfaith group that I was once a part of.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. And Paula.
All right, how's me? I think we're in favor of the meeting. I like the meeting on the Zoom meeting with all the reps. That
Okay.
sounded good.
Okay. So Zoom. Okay, and sorry, Paula's husband, what was your name again?
Bruce.
Bruce. I'm gonna get it. Okay, Bruce, how about you?
We have a new member. We have a new member. I would like to meet with him when he settles in.
Okay, good. Who's your new member?
Williams.
Ryan Williams.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. And Michael, shall I skip you? Yeah, you're too busy.
Just got told.
Well, I have an opinion.
Okay, okay.
Of that we are sure.
Oh, yes, that's true.
I like the idea of pulling that interfaith group together and recognizing the context that we're in, which, you know, always careful. I mean, not to use a climate image here, but to boil the ocean. The ocean's already boiling. But what can we do? And I think I like the idea of the support group or the advocacy group, or that the members could draw on, and you could do that from a diocese. We have 4 ridings in this diocese. So you could make that outreach to the 4 provincial and federal and say, we're prepared. And then you bring the advocacy group together to be that, meet 3 times a year in that consultative session to be able to bring those things. I think that would provide a partnership.
Okay, that's good. Oh, and you can't underestimate the value of those advocacy group and those meetings, because that was, after all, how I met Michael as well. I just thought I'd add that. Okay.
For those of you that are single, you could meet somebody.
You never know what can happen. God's full of all kinds of surprises. Okay. Don't want to get derailed here. Wayne.
I would say, Sophie, too. One is the interfaith group, because that's a direct link to us. And second, meetings, because that's in partnership, appealing to the fact, I hope, that all of us are trying to make a positive difference.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Paul.
I think right now, for me, I've more or less, not that I'm fence sitting, but I'm more right now at listening and learning. But definitely the advocacy, being a part of the advocacy group and learning more. I don't get out much, so learning as much as possible right now for me is on the forefront.
Okay, perfect. That's great. Roberto.
Well, I'm here in Toronto, so if I can support people from afar, I'm happy to do that. I know
sure.
I'm already engaged in a number of initiatives in the diocese here,
okay.
I sit on the Bishop Asbill's Committee on Care for Creation, and we have and on their liturgy subcommittee and their education subcommittee. So I would encourage, you're already a group, so and I presume you meet regularly. In this type of series, I think is helpful to keep you motivated and keep you informed and armed with valuable tools, as Sophie has so aptly provided us tonight, ways to implement and advocate for, what's the heart of the matter, which is, addressing climate change.
So maybe we could invite you to, keep you on a mailing list, or if we succeed in getting the advocacy group together, if you're able to join us. I know what it's like to be involved in a number of committees, so that would certainly be something that would be easy enough to do, and you don't even need to travel here, although it's beautiful if you decide to.
Right, and I do have a country place in Northumberland County, which is a little bit closer.
Okay, so we could meet there.
Yeah, it's until recently it was completely off grid.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's straw bale, and we built it ourselves on weekends over 10 years. And we even have a constructed wetland that processes all our black and gray water waste, to the point where we're putting back into the ground water that has less bacteria than we're pulling out of the ground in our well.
Isn't that wonderful? Okay, well, we'll throw you into advocacy groups and add you to a mail list, if that's okay, Ian, because that's Ian's bailiwick, not mine.
Okay.
We have friends in North Gore who have a straw bale house. Harry Kitts, I don't know if you've ever run into him. He's done a lot of advocacy work over the years, Citizens for Public Justice, but you're the only other person I know that has one.
Yeah, well, there's a whole straw bale building coalition, and there are probably over 100 straw bale homes in southern Ontario.
Okay, so Andy, you're next now, and I'm going to ask you, just so that we can keep going here before we get carried away by straw bales. Andy, what's your top one or two picks?
I had the same as Michael, and that may just be because we're old Tories and we think the same. I don't know, but I had advocacy groups and interfaith groups just because I really think we got to be working with like-minded people. I mean, we're one group doing good work, but you know, there's a whole lot of people that are concerned about this as well from other faiths.
Yeah.
So those are the two that I had. Just
okay.
We should be working together with other like-minded people.
Okay, that sounds good. Peter.
If you mean me, will you take Barb instead of Peter?
Oh, there we go. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation, Sophie. This was great. And I really liked, Michael, how you focused it down, right? We can't have a meeting with elected representatives and sort of wander all over the place. You have to go in with a very clear focus. So that's really good. So I'm with the yes, advocacy for sure. But I also think that together we're stronger. So reaching out to other similar groups will have way more impact than one small group, good as we might be. And I too live in Northumberland County, so a different riding. So I can throw that one into the mix too.
Okay, so meetings, outreach, and advocacy groups.
Yeah.
Okay, this is excellent. Okay, because we already have enough people, and there's no limit to make for a good number to start an advocacy group. So that's excellent. So next we've got Mary, and then after Mary, Valerie Linds. Mary, go ahead.
I think the last speaker kind of nailed it for me too, that Michael did a great job of like his synergistic, framing of that. Mm-hmm. I like that. I like it. I definitely like the advocacy groups, meeting with the member. And I really do feel strongly about the interfaith thing because it's just more power, more people.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Okay, Valerie, you're our last but not least.
Yeah, I'm in with Michael and Mary, and I like the idea of interfaith group and the advocacy groups. It sounds to me as though they would be the most influential.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to make sure that I have the two most popular items are very clearly advocacy groups. That would be an ongoing group that would meet regularly with a representative, and the interfaith group. For the advocacy group, let me know if I don't call out your name. Mary, Valerie, Andy, Paul, Don, Michael, Roberto, and Barb. Nobody missing?
Well, there's two Marys.
Yeah, Mary.
Did
That's
both
right.
Marys want on?
Yes.
Okay. And interfaith group. Yes, you're right. Two Marys, eh? That's a problem. Mary.
Problem for Jesus too. Yeah.
Yes. That's right. Mary, Michael, Wayne, Andy, Mary again, and Valerie. Did I miss anybody for the interfaith group? Okay, perfect.
Well, I would be interested if it's going to start up. I would be interested in being part of it.
Okay. Okay, that's wonderful. And there's a natural sort of connection to the advocacy group, obviously, with the point that we addressed for meetings. So obviously, if you're part of the advocacy group, you're having meetings with the elected representative. Anyway, that was a good exercise, and I think we've got the bones of a good momentum.
Sophie, that was an amazing way that you pulled that together. Thank you for that. That was incredible. You did what every speaker needs to do at the end of their talk is pull people to action, and you have
Yeah.
clearly done that. I have actually felt buoyed by your comments about the fact that in 2018 you weren't hearing as much, because those of us that have been talking about climate change for years feel that sometimes we're just droning on and nobody's hearing it. But the fact that you've said that, you know, the time is now has given us, I think a sense of urgency. You know, again, we feel it and then it kind of drifts off, but thank you for that. And thank you for your topic, your discussion this evening.
Oh, you're so welcome. And just to clarify the last thing that you said there, I didn't have people that lobbied me at the Legislative Assembly. I did have some groups that would come to me, not many, groups and individuals, not many at all in the constituency. So just wanted to make sure that that was a clear distinction there. But thank you so much for having this session and inviting me to be part of it. It's, you know, I love advocacy. So it's part of what I do.
I just wanted to, just being mindful of time, I just wanted to just say thank you to all the participants this evening. And again, it will be posted on the YouTube channel. So they tend to be getting a lot of additional showings on that channel. It is the same link for this session. And next week, we have 2 more sessions. Next Thursday, the 30th, it's Roberto Ciotti, and he's going to be talking about the impact of climate change on the eco-theological response. And then the final one is October 7th with Michael. And so we'll look forward to those 2, and I hope everybody here can join us on those next sessions. And have a good night. If you're driving home, be safe, and
just 1 second before we say goodbye to everyone. I'm not sure. I have everyone's email address who's on this call except for Paul Hutt. So I was wondering if he could send me, because I'm trying to marshal together all of the email addresses of people who have been part of these webinars. That would be great. Paul, do you have mine? My email address?
I can look it up on the website.
Okay. Okay, very good. If you could send me your email address, that would be great.
Yeah,
then we can connect. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank
Very good
you.
group tonight.
2 thumbs up.
Yes.
Be well. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
everybody.
Take good
Good night,
care.
everyone.
Night, night.